So, you gotta convince someone to believe you on some kind of topic, do you? Want to tell them that your neighbor is a lizard man who craves their liver? Convince them that their favorite brand of chicken nuggets is really breaded with the eye crust of the elderly? Plead to them that movies of your favorite genre are 10 times better than the books? Well, I can help you with that last one right now.
Don't.
Regarding everything else, you could use facts and other means of reasonable arguments, but that's a lot of work to research. Plus, it's super boring, and I know you're not the kind of boring person, right? Instead, we gotta use something called a half-truth. I'll be using Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, as well as The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli, in addition to extracts from Post-Truth, an article provided from this week's reading. Lastly, in order to illustrate all my examples, I'll be using the infinite power of
The void.
So what exactly is a half-truth? Dictionary describes a half-truth as a statement that conveys only part of the truth, especially one used deliberately in order to deceive someone. In other words, it's sort of the truth, but it's not all the truth. What's nice about using a half-truth is that it allows you to tell some of the truth while also leaving room for interpretations. Your interpretations. Half-truths are dangerous because they add subjectivity to the truth. This means that truth is no longer one thing. Instead, truth could be multiple things, many things, anything of which you could make an argument for, whether or not it's truly correct or absolutely wrong. This type of thinking later evolved into something called truthiness. Truthiness is defined in the dictionary as the quality of seeming or being felt to be true, even if not necessarily true. Truthiness plays a major role in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, as Harry has to deal with how everyone scrutinizes him regarding the return of Voldemort, because even though Harry has never been proven to be a liar, fact, and has come face to face with Voldemort multiple times, fact, everyone thinks he's lying because he's a traumatized teenager. And it makes sense that traumatized teenagers aren't always the best source of truthful information, especially when you have higher-ups like Cornelius Fudge telling everyone else that Harry is wrong. Truthy. The last term we're going to define regarding truth is a post-truth. Post-truth is more of an idea compared to everything else. It relates to or denotes circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. With post-truth, thought becomes less about finding out what's true and what's false, and more about trying to make sure that your truth is the most popular of all the other truths. Kind of like how some people like to talk about how much their sports team is better than someone else's sports team. So now you're probably wondering, why is all this important? Well, when we bring it all together, a master of post-truths, half-truths, and truthiness essentially has the ability to shape the story, the narrative, and the truth in however ways they want. If you want someone to teach you how to use half-truths, look no farther than Niccolo Machiavelli. That guy basically identified it before it was even a thing. All this talk about subjectivity made me realize that the void can be whatever I want, so I made a two-dimensional fireplace with a green screen dog. Oh yeah, we were going to talk about Machiavelli, I forgot. The Prince is essentially an instruction manual about how to rule and how to keep your rule. Regarding the many controversial topics, one of these things is how to control the perception of the people. According to the Prince, men in general judge more by their eyes than their hands. Everyone can see, but few can feel. Everyone sees what you seem to be. Few touch upon what you are, and those few do not dare to contradict the opinion of the many who have the majesty of the state to defend them. What Machiavelli is saying is that the more people you have behind you and the more public support you have, the more likely others are going to buy into whatever it is that you're selling. So as long as you control the popular opinion, you control the narrative, regardless of how much of it is truly true. This can also happen in reverse, where instead of trying to bring someone up, you try to discredit them. Politicians do this all the time in order to make themselves look better by making someone else look worse.
It is with a heavy heart that I come to you today to inform you of the hurtful intentions of Mark Antony. Here is the final proof that he has been corrupted by the great seductress of Egypt.
Voldemort in Harry Potter is well known for this. Even Dumbledore talks about how dangerous Voldemort's ability to spread chaos through disinformation is. His gift for spreading discord and enmity is very great. We can fight it only by showing an equally strong bond of friendship and trust. So, how do you defend yourself against half-truths? The author of the post-truth extracts would likely tell you to stop thinking emotionally and think more logically. I know that sounds rather obvious, but you'd be surprised. Post-truth thinking is tied more towards emotional thinking rather than logical thinking. And seeing as how we have an article talking about the dangers of post-truths and half-truths, in addition to a fictional book that specifically targets the issues of half-truths, in addition to a book that literally tells you how to take advantage of it, I'd have to say that humanity has a little bit of a problem with emotional thinking at the moment. Another way to defend yourself against these things is to be careful of how much time you give to certain topics or subjects. Nobody wants to be known as a closed-minded person, so we'll hear anyone out for anything they have to say typically. The problem with this is that sometimes our minds can be too open to the point where we're vulnerable to misinformation and dangerous ideas. The article in Post-Truth talks about the experience of a climate change scientist named James Hansen. James was asked to appear on public television for a debate regarding climate change. However, what he found out with his producer was that this debate was less of a science on science debate and more of a science versus skeptic debate. James Hansen's experience of being a contrarian, according to a producer, indicates that arguments from both sides must be seen as equally plausible, even if the research on both sides is not seen as equally valuable nor accurate. So next time you think that someone is telling you something that isn't really entirely true, and maybe not even worth your time, don't feel like you have to be pressured to support what they're saying out of open-mindedness. The goal of objectivity is not to give equal time between truth and falsehoods. It is to facilitate the truth.